Welcome back to another episode of Worship Tech Tour here at First Baptist Church in Pontotoc, Mississippi. They reached out to us about 8 months ago to let us know they were renovating this gymnasium space to accommodate their growing contemporary worship service here at this church. This church has been around this community for decades, and over the past few years, they've had a growth problem, which is a good problem, but they were running out of space where they're previously meeting for their contemporary service. They had this family life center. It used to be a basketball gym. You can see here the Matterport that we captured at the beginning of this project. So it is no easy task converting a gymnasium into a church, but I think that's our slogan here at Churchfront. Make gymnasiums churches again. And we love doing it. It's a lot of fun. I'm excited to take you on this tech tour. We're gonna walk through the brand new audio system, the lighting system, the LED screens, all of the nerdy integration. You're gonna learn a ton of great ideas that you could implement at your church. Because here at Churchfront, our mission is to equip you with innovative solutions for thriving ministry. So let's dive on in. This new worship center has a seating capacity of 600. So you can see those chairs behind me. And because this was a gymnasium, it required a complete renovation of new flooring, painting the walls, and then also putting acoustic treatment on the walls in this space. And the results are amazing. It looks great. We've got the prime acoustic Broadway panels. They're 2 feet wide by 4 feet long, and they are wrapped in the linen colored fabric. They have the beveled edges on them, so the finish looks nice and sharp and clean. Lately, we've really preferred the beveled edges to the square edges. It makes your church space look a little bit less like a recording studio, and it has a nice little architectural touch to it. I really like the innovative house lighting solution that our client here opted for with the house lights you see above us. So not talking about the whiter, cool work lights that are on right now. That helps you see what's going on. But the warmer bar lighting, it's called Barina or Barina. Not really sure how you pronounce that. We'll put a link down below. You can check it out. They come out in different models. They have the 0 to 10 volt dimmable ones here. Our client did say you need to make sure they are all the same type to make sure they're compatible with one another, but they're in 4-foot sections that you can then link together. The result's pretty cool. I like the architectural style of it and the warm temperature of it. So they're dimmable. I'm pretty happy with the solution. So that's a cool, innovative one. And then they have the Hex shop lights that are above the tech booth area, sort of in the back of the room, that also has a cool little design touch to them. They're also dimmable. I do want to give you guys a caveat about these house lights is they look cool. They're definitely bright enough. Again, they're intended more to be like shop lights. So I can dim them, but then once it gets past a certain amount of power, they have a pretty loud clicking off. And then when I go back on, they click back on. So before, I always get a little hesitant about some of the things we cover on this channel before you guys go buying all these house lights and installing them and being like, Jake, the clicking noise, why didn't you tell me about that? I told you about it. Moving on to the PA system, the speakers we are running here are mostly Fulcrum acoustic speakers. So our main left and right are 2 arrays by Fulcrum, the FL283T speakers. They are dual 8-inch cardioid speakers that are in each one of those boxes. We've got 5 on the left side, 5 on the right side. I have to say, I'm very pleased with these line arrays and just the clarity you have from front to back in the room. And one of the benefits of a line array is that the sound just feels so much closer to your ears as a listener because it can just more efficiently send that energy to whether it's the front or the back of the room. So it makes it very easy to mix.
All my life you have been so good. With every breath that I am able, oh, I will sing of the goodness of God.
Then we have our front fills. These are the RX6s by Fulcrum Acoustic. For people who are in the front row or the second row, they need a little bit more supplementary coverage here in those areas, and these guys work great for it. We have 6 of those along the front of the stage. Finally, we have the subwoofers underneath the stage. These subwoofers, the client opted to keep from an existing system they had. no problem. We were able to then, first of all, just inspect they're gonna work properly with the system, which they were. They're in great condition. And then we could integrate them into the DSP that we have back in the rack. These subwoofers are active, so the amplifiers are in them, but all the other speakers you saw, the Fulcrum speakers, are passive. So we have the 2 amps powering them in the equipment rack. But right now we are in the Goblin Enclosure. This is the Goblin 2.5 model. Cost is $5,300 plus the freight shipping to get it to you. It is 7.5 feet wide by 6.5 feet tall, and it's got a great acoustical ceiling top to it. It isolates 25 to 30 decibels. You can have a caster option for it. I'm really happy with it. It really makes mixing this acoustic set way easier out there. So they have very low stage volume, and then it looks great. The materials feel great. The backing here is this kind of like thick acoustic absorbing material on the back side of it. And then inside here, they've got a Pearl drum set with some Zildjian A Custom series cymbals, and the drummer is gonna have their in-ear monitor control here as well with the ME unit. The surface of the stage here is simple vinyl tile flooring that you'd find in some other commercial spaces out there, like a hospital or other facilities. And it's kind of nice, it has a nice sheen to it. So it is the lights kind of reflect off of it. It's another design choice that the client wanted, is to have something to help reinforce the lights as they reflect down, especially the kick lights from above it here. But we have a very clean stage because of the integration of the floor pockets here. So these are Elite Core floor pockets. They're gonna give us XLR connections and data connections, as well as audio connections to go from the ME1 units on stage to a wireless transmitter for wireless ears for our worship leader. That's a nice little trick to know about. I'll show you. So out of the headphone ports right here, we have a stereo TRS connector that breaks out to 2 XLR left and right, so you can still have a stereo mix coming out of here, and that goes into the PSM 300s backstage. But it's really important to think through all the connector plates to make it clean. This is a really cool setup that Zach, the worship pastor, has for his guitar rig. It's the gig rig, and it's a MIDI controller for his guitar rig that you guys will see sitting backstage. So with our custom plates that we created, we also had a 7-pin MIDI connector here so that this MIDI controller can then trigger all of the pedals that you'll see back in his guitar rig backstage, and it makes it nice and clean. For running tracks, he has a little MacBook Air right now using playback and has a Dante connection, so no audio interfaces or things adding additional equipment here. And then, you could put this laptop anywhere on stage to have a really clean track rig over the network. In our keys world, they have a really simple but premium solution here with the Nord Grand piano. Sounds fantastic right out of the box, the patches that you got in here. So I'm a big fan of it. It's a little bit simpler than the stage piano, and you could still add on your effects, like add a little bit of synth pad or reverb, delay, equalization. And over here, again, you have all the MEs for all of the musicians here to dial in their in-ear mix. And this is a stereo in-ear mix. So they have a much clearer mixes now as musicians. That gives them confidence to perform better and just lead with greater confidence. Another clever idea for cable management, give Zach credit for this one, is having some floor pockets that are just empty for easy cable management. You can really hide a lot of cables underneath the stage here. So why not actually show you guys the underneath side of this? I'm very jealous. I wish my church had this great of access to the stage. Well, hey there. So here I am under stage. Plenty of room down here to work, to get around. I can get to the back of all these connector plates. I'm a huge fan, so come on down, get a better look at this. Welcome to the Ritz-Carlton of understage crawl space. So I've got my creeper here. Again, I can scoot around. I can see where all of our cables are running, and props to our install team doing a great job. Great clean cable management down here. And like I said, if you have extra cabling on stage through those empty pockets, we can stuff it down here. We actually did that with some in-ear monitor cabling right here. Probably could find better ways to cable manage down here, but at least it's clean on stage. It's easy to get around down here. Really, really like this stage.
So the first rack I want to talk through is actually Zach, the worship pastor, his guitar rack. Some of the customization we did for this job was putting some boxes right here that have his MIDI connection, his instrument cable, and then some XLRs so that we can get it back into the system. But audio comes from his guitar rig over to here, and then MIDI control comes from the MIDI connection here, and it comes into the backside of his rack. And then in his rack, he's got all of his pedals. So he's got the worship trifecta, Big Sky, Timeline, and then another Strymon pedal here and some other fancy stuff going on. But he's got all this pre-wired into this rack. And then he's got another row where he can do some testing and just keep some extra things. And then out of this rig, it comes into our system. So I'm gonna start with equipment rack number 2. Kind of our standard is network rack is 1 and then audio rack is 2. But you know, our standard fancy lights up at the top. And then we've got some patch panels. These I'm particularly proud of. It's the best ones we've had yet, with these nice labels and our ability to come into the switch that's in between them. And then to talk through these patch panels a little bit, you'll see these numbers. This is our numbering system so that we can understand our tie lines. So N6-001 is gonna go to a certain destination, and we're able to use our cable schedule to decide how is this gonna get used. So real life example. So this patch panel is only for the MEU hub. And so all of the cables connected to the MEU hub stay connected. They're not getting pulled in and out. The cable management is really nice. And then if they want to make an adjustment to which floor box on stage is being fed or connected to a MEU hub port, they just have to make a simple patch change here. So you could take this N6005, let's say that they want to put this in a different port. They just have to come over here and plug this in there. And now they've got an ME connection at a different location on their stage. So super handy, and it keeps the back really clean because we don't have to make adjustments on the cables on the back. Right here, we've got a power rack unit. Below that, we have our Lintex system power. So this is the trigger for our end pack, which I'll show you. It's a little bit different spot in the rack, but this allows the whole system to get turned on and off. And then we have our IEM. So we've got 4 of these here, just going to a combiner from Shure. And then we have our SLX D4Q Plus. These are the Dante version. So we're able to connect all of our microphones, there are 4 channels of them, through the Dante network. So we're not using preamps for that. Here we have DT168, which is a Dante stage box. So all of these preamps connect to the Dante system directly. We pick them up on the Dante network to patch them into primarily the SQ6, but anywhere on the Dante network we could put these connections to. We actually have 2 of these units, and so we're able to have 32 preamps and 16 outputs. And then below that, we've got our MEU hub. And one thing that is notable about this one is it has a Dante card. Usually we would have an S-Link card in here. That's what comes standard, and we're able to just plug that into the S-Link system from Allen & Heath, but you can get different cards for this. This is Dante card. You could get MIDI card, Waves card, all sorts of things that you can actually connect your MEU hub into different systems. So you can still use ME1s and ME500s with any system that has a compatible card. So this one we are using Dante, and we're able to send all of our Dante channels, 40 of them rather, into this. And then we're able to mix all of our in-ears from the Dante sources. As you saw earlier, we have the EV subs, and so the ability to do DSP on them comes from using the AHM. So this is a great unit. This is the AHM 32. You can get a 16, 32, or 64, but this one was sufficient for the needs that we had to be able to pull in over Dante the house mix, the 2-bus out of the console, and then our system tuning engineer went ahead and made sure that the subs were lined up with our tops, and he did that through the processing on the AHM. There's way more you can do with this unit, but that's the primary use case for it here. Then we have our 2 PowerSoft Unica 8M amps, and then below that is a pretty new system for us, the N Pack from Lintec. And what's great about this is this actually has the ability to be synchronized over the network. So we're able to, over the network, networkable, control all of the power within this rack and anything connected to the system. So a very interesting use case for this is I was remote, I was not on site, and I wanted to make some adjustments to the SQ console, but the system was off and Zach was somewhere else. So I logged onto the system and I powered on the SQ6 console, and I was able to check or make adjustments, whatever I was doing while I was off site, and then turn it back off when I was done. So it's pretty cool that you're able to remotely turn on and off the system and also do automation through it.
Here's a look at the back side of this rack. As you can imagine, there's a lot of equipment and there's a lot of cabling. So shout out to our Churchfront technicians. We assemble this in Melbourne, and then we're able to deliver this here to the client on site with the majority of the rack pieces here already installed. And then of course, if we have to integrate any owner furbished equipment, we can do that here on site.
So here we have equipment rack number 1. Again, we usually do 2 racks, and equipment rack 1 is generally the primary computing rack. So we have a main switch in here. Same thing as the other rack. We've got our light, our logo plate, and then we have some patch bays. And again, patch bays are what allow us to quickly make adjustments to how things are connected to one another, and also allows us to build the racks off-site so that we can pre-wire all of these connections to the backside of the pieces of equipment inside of the rack. So we've got Cisco switches and our patch bays here. And in this particular case, the client has a connection with a IT guru, someone that manages counties wide of IT. So we are definitely confident handing off to them the IT management. So we were able to just make requests of how that we wanted this configured, and they were able to do that, and they're actually on site with us for commissioning. So in certain cases, we definitely want to make sure that we cater to that. This church actually sends their live stream to a TV channel. So they have a lot of network infrastructure. They're using NDI as well. So we just went ahead and had them purchase the same switches of family that they are already using throughout the rest of their multiple building campus. That is our network section here. We have the Wall Panel Pro from Pro Church Lights. So we're able to use the wall panel to control the scenes, but also use the light key. And then here we have an EN4, and that is what is our device that allows us to actually get the signal from the computer into the DMX chain. And then we've got a splitter here. This keeps the lines clean, so you're not running too many channels of lights on a single line. This section right here is the LED walls. So there are 3 processors for the LED walls, and the way that signal gets into them, because again, this is an NDI campus, we have these KiloView converters, which are the N6 converters. So it takes the NDI signal in and it pushes HDMI out, because these Nova Stars do not have the NDI input. So we're required to make that conversion. But I really like how this little rack unit came out, and we're able to mount multiple in there. Speaking of racking multiple things, we've got 3 computers in this 2U chassis. So since the new M4 Mac Minis came out, Sonnet had to come up with a new solution for racking them, and this form factor is really satisfying. I like how this mounts. I like the access on the backside, being able to plug things in, access on the front for plugging things in, seeing the light. So really happy with how this turned out. And then we connect these to our KVMs. So we've got 4 KVM units here, because we have an additional computer below this, and this is a Mac Studio. So this is a higher end computer running all of their computer graphics, including what they're using through ProPresenter. And then what's nice about this chassis is that this side is the computer, and then this side allows for PCIe card slots. So we can put multiple PCIe card slots on this side.
So this rack in particular had more equipment that had to be installed on site. But once again, we've got some clean cable management up here. We got our processors here. Those are the data runs for the LED screen. Down here, you can see the back side of the Macs and our KVMs. And here's the studio. I think they just threw that hub in here yesterday. So here's one of the Lintech remote relay modules here. So we've got one here so we can power on and off gear in this rack. We also have one at front of house for the mixing console. Really impressed with using Lintech for power sequencing. Even in a smaller format situation like this, you don't have to have one of the larger panels to get into Lintech. The NPAC controller functions as the main controller for all of these other devices here.
So we have our receivers for our microphones in the rack, and these are our transmitters. We got the Nexodyne capsules on top of the SLX D2s, and as soon as the system fired up and we got ready for rehearsal, I got to hear these in action. Super impressed with these on our vocals. And then we have one body pack for the pastor. Actually, we have two body packs. And then we have our receivers for our in-ear monitors. And this is kind of a unique situation. They don't have drywall on this side, so they're able to just mount it in between the studs. But on top of here, we have our SBC 203s for these, and then our charging stations for our in-ears. And one really great thing for this team is they're able to walk through this door, grab these, know that it's going to be fully charged, and when they're done, they just dock it back on because we have the docking stations and the rechargeable batteries. So super huge fan of that workflow. I really think it's worth the investment to go ahead and get the batteries and docking stations whenever you're doing a wireless microphone upgrade.
So to give you guys a reference point of where we are in the room, here is the backstage where the racks were. Here's the stage. And then if we go up here, there's actually a little broadcast production studio that we can check out. Up here in their broadcast room, they have a TriCaster setup. TriCaster is now owned by VizRT, different company. We haven't gone into this world that much yet. When I look into it, it sounds cool, but then when I consider all the costs and such, it's like, still prefer going kind of the ATEM route with a lot of the video switching. But this works well for them. They already had this NewTek TriCaster here, so you've got the control panel, and now all of their cameras around the room, they've got PTZ cameras by PTZ Optics, they've got a Canon PTZ camera. All of those video sources go into the TriCaster server over NDI. This is where they can mix all the video, and then they can send outputs that are going to a live stream or the outputs that go to the LED screens down in the room. We showed you those NDI KiloView converters to get the feed into the processors for the screens. So here's another workstation where they can mix audio for their broadcast. And because they have Dante infrastructure, they can send multi-track audio over their network anywhere. This gives them a lot of flexibility. Because they have a treated room and a premium PA system, the best mixing spot is at front of house. So what we're able to do here is we actually set up a matrix mix on their SQ6 at front of house, and an operator up here can monitor that matrix mix with this iPad that controls the matrix on the SQ6. So they can add in more crowd mics, or if they feel like, oh, we want to have more of the drums or more of some of these vocals, they have a little flexibility there to tweak that mix for the broadcast online.
So why would I make a bed in my shame when I found others? 'Cause running my way, I know I am yours, and I was made for more.
But if they want to have more control and get a clean multi-track capture and also mix that in real time, they could use a DAW, digital audio workstation, like Logic or Ableton or any of the great DAWs out there. They can mix in real time and have that pulled up here. They could use a fader port that they've got here to control that mix. So there's a lot of flexibility here. My guess is because the room and the house mix is going to be so great, they're going to want to just pull that most of the time. But again, if you want that flexibility to mix in a DAW, they've got that ready to go right here. And it's just a very budget option for mixing. You don't have to buy a whole separate console. You can load all the plugins in that DAW and it's going to work great. One important aspect of audio, especially if you're a live stream, is capturing the congregation. So you hear the ambient sound of the room and you hear the singing. So we actually have two hanging microphones up here. These are the Audix condenser microphones. They are pointed towards the congregation. They're very small, so you don't even see them, especially when the work lights are off. It's gonna help that stream sound great.
I'm gonna say this is my favorite place to be, front of house. We've got our SQ6 console and our two other workstations here. So this is really like this is just such a good console for a very large number of people. We are pretty well maxed out on channel count. So We do also love the Avantis console, but for their case, they already own this console, and it's running on Dante. They're familiar with it because they have another Sanctuary. This is like the contemporary space. They have a Sanctuary that they also use for traditional service, and so very comfortable with SQ6. Already knew how to use it, but one thing that we did add was a computer, and I think a computer at the mix station is a very important tool, especially when we're doing such a large Dante network. Being able to review that here, and then also we're able to add in some other things like the ability to use Smart. So we're able to monitor the SPL reading here, and then we have Super Rack Performer running. We're only running 8 channels, and we're only running vocal tuning on those 8 channels. So the vocalists are locked into pitch, but that's the only thing that we're running on this Super Rack instance here. A few other things that are really helpful for having a computer at front of house is wireless workbench. So we're running wireless workbench here, and because we are doing Dante microphones, the best place to adjust gain is actually on the receiver. And to access that receiver, instead of walking all the way back there, I'm just using wireless workbench to make those adjustments. But you can do a lot with this. You can adjust the frequencies if something comes up. You can monitor the battery level. So very helpful tool to have here at front of house. And then we also have multi-track recording. So we're able to record and play back. So immediately after rehearsal last night, I will to flip our inputs and then listen and continue to make adjustments to our mix after the musicians left. Another really handy thing that we like to have at front house is a Sonect sound wire. So on this end, we have a USB-C cable that can connect into any computer or phone. And then on the other end are XLR cables. And then embedded in those XLR connections are all the electrical components that are needed to protect your phone from phantom power, but also be able to send up to 192K sample rate audio into your console. So very handy tool. And very similar to that is a Dante Avio Bluetooth device, which I've Velcroed to the side here. So if someone wanted to be able to just connect their phone over Bluetooth, they could press and hold this button up top, and then they'd be able to go onto their phone and choose the front of house Avio, and then play audio from their phone or computer or Bluetooth device into the console.
Because we're using those KVMs here that are sending the computer USB and HDMI signal to the workstations, that means underneath our workstations, it's very clean. There's not a bunch of equipment down here. You're really just seeing the keyboard and mouse cabling coming down here, some data connection cables here. These are our connections to our KVMs and these wall plates. Here's a KVM right there. So then up here, we have 2 workstations. We have the lighting workstation for the light key computer, and then we have our Pro Presenter. So they've got Pro Presenter, lighting, audio workstation here. It's a really great setup. A common one we see is 3 people in the front of house tech booth. So for the LED screen system they have here, it's great for projecting content. It is also just a cool set piece. You see they've got the center screen that's about 18 feet wide by almost 10 feet tall, and then the 4 vertical strips that are about 1.5 feet wide by also the same height as that center screen, and then they have the 2 side screens. So with this setup, they've got 3 processors to drive the data to these 3 screens. And it's just a really great tool for worship, for projecting lyrics. And with Pro Presenter, you can format the lyrics to show up differently on each of the screens. All right, the first fixtures I want to walk you through are the Ovation E910 full color spotlights. So this particular preset, not sure why the color faded in like that, but here you see the end result of these front lights. These are ellipsoidal spotlights. You can really have lots of control over the beam, which is important when we're working with a very small stage here. We don't want too much of the beam washing onto things like the walls or the LED wall. So we've got 3, 6, 9, 10 of those lights for front lighting here on this stage, rigged at the proper angle that's gonna just look the best for viewing subjects on stage or on camera. Next up, we've got some wash lights. So here we have the Rogue R2X washes. They are kick lights behind the band, adds nice atmosphere and just kind of emotional effect to the stage design. Looks really sharp. It's also really cool, you know, when you're using these spotlights and you're selecting the right front lights, how much that wall behind them will disappear. Next up, we have the Chauvet Maverick spotlights that are interspersed between those Rogue R2X washes on stage. So they've got 5 of those Mavericks on the truss that is above the backline musicians. And then they've got 2 Rogue spots that are actually on the floor, just pointing up right now. This gives them a really great palette to work with. So here's one of the lighting scenes for one of the songs here, Goodbye Yesterday, that they got programmed. Let me go ahead and pull up the LED screens for you. And this is what it all looks like working together here. So here's the next cue. Here's another cue. Let's go to another song. Got some green in there. Seafoam green looks nice. So they have all sorts of flexibility. Of course, they've got a hazer that's running in here as well that's gonna add to that atmospheric effect.
Man, just so grateful, honestly. The project has been a long time coming, and at least a year in development and construction and all of those kinds of things, and really it's just overwhelming to see the congregation's reaction. I think everybody is just overwhelmed by how good everything has turned out. Fulcrum speakers are something else entirely. I've never heard a sound system that sounds so rich and immersive, but yet still at extremely reasonable volumes. It's almost deceptive because you don't appreciate how low the volume is until you talk to someone next to you and realize that it's easy to hear them because the sound is still rich and full. The experience has been great. Adam is a really good communicator. We're a really small town here in Pontotoc, and I was concerned. I didn't know if Churchfront would really care about a church as small as ours, and Adam was encouraging the whole way through, and even from the first phone conversation, it's been really good back and forth communication, and this give and take on different ideas. There were some ideas that because of our size, things were outside of our budget, and so we had to kind of make alternate ideas happen, and Churchfront was extremely accommodating for those things as well. So I think the end result came together really well.
A huge thank you to Zach and his team here at Pontotoc. They've been a delight to work with on this project. And then a shout out to our Churchfront team and our crew. They work really long hours. They travel a long way to implement all the things that you see here. And it is just so refreshing to be here for the first worship service and see this space in action, serving and ministering to this community. So great job, Adam. He's the account manager on this project. Chris led the installation and assembly crew. And then again, shout out to our technicians and all the hard work that you guys saw in this video. If you would like to partner with Churchfront on implementing innovative solutions for your thriving ministry, reach out to us at churchfront.com and we'd be glad to speak with you today. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.